As of recently, Butch Hartman has become the monthly piñata for everyone to beat up in terms of YouTube drama. However, this is a much stranger case than whenever Logan Paul went into the Suicide Forest, or whenever Tana Mongoose did TanaCon, or whatever the hell it was. Unlike a lot of other instances of YouTube drama, Butch Hartman was a relatively taboo subject to criticize leading up to this event. Unlike a lot of other cases in which it's easier to give into the notion that these unlikable assholes might just be unlikable assholes, there weren't very many people willing to criticize this man. And a lot of that, in all honesty, has to do with the constant capitalization of nostalgia, something that even Hartman himself had given into. I mean, for fuck's sake. Why else does he claim to be the creator of your childhood on his own channel description? Why is it that he's constantly making videos with Fairly Odd Parents or Danny Phantom in the thumbnails? You seriously cannot go every other video without them somewhere on the cover. It's because he's well aware that nostalgia is basically an industry within itself at this point. However, despite everyone giving him a get out of jail free card for all the egotism and blatant hypocrisy he's been selling since he quit Nickelodeon, it was only inevitable that eventually the world would catch on to Butch Hartman's schemes and trickery. But golly gee, did the world catch on fast. Several things I want to clarify before I dive head on into this topic. This isn't an attack on Butch Hartman personally, but rather how he projects himself professionally. I'm going to be as objective as I possibly can while I recount all the events leading up to this hot dumpster fire, as well as the aftermath of it, so sit back, grab your popcorn, and join me as I look into the rise and fall of Butch Hartman. And just clarify, when I say a rise, I mean rise of his YouTube channel, not his career. That would make this video way too fucking long. While his YouTube career can be dated back to 2015, in reality it all began in February 8th, 2018 when he uploaded Why I Left Nickelodeon. This was an essential part to seeing the rise of his online presence, as the video was not only #1 trending for a good amount of time, but the video currently stands at 5 million views. I don't know about you guys, but 5 million seems like a fucking lot of viewers. That may just be me because, you know, I have like 20 subscribers or something, but that's still a big ass number. This would be the defining moment in his career, because it not only meant that he retired his position in the entertainment industry that he had built up for damn near 20 years, but it also allowed him to become more open with his experiences working in the animation industry. And while it's not exactly impossible today with the advent of the internet, it's definitely a perspective we don't see often. So it's very easy to see how Butch's decision to leave the animation industry in favor of YouTube could have provided a new insight to upcoming animators, or could just upfront provide a new perspective on the industry that many people don't typically hear from or think about. I mean, hell, with Butch having the status that he did at the time, it's not as if he needed to prove himself to the YouTube community anyways. But the very first red flag was the conscious choice to give into the YouTube algorithm, as opposed to changing it himself. Not that he should have been expected to change the YouTube algorithm or anything to begin with, but considering all the different things that he speaks up on in regards to YouTube's algorithm, like clickbait for example, he really isn't consistent on practicing the words he preach.
You know, there's a lot of stuff out there in the vast world of the internet and on YouTube, you know, where people put these clickbaity titles up. You click on the video because the clickbait title looks great, and then what's in the title isn't on the video. Thanks for clicking. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate everything everyone's done on this channel. I'm so grateful that you guys have decided to tune in. Thank you for giving us all these extra subscribers this year. But life gets hard, life gets rough. I have a family. I have TV shows that I do. I have a lot of things to do. I have a charitable foundation. Plus I have this channel. It all takes work. It all takes time. And guys, I just don't know if I can keep doing it. And I just wanted to let you know that as of now, in 2017, we are ending the Butch Hartman channel. But we're going to revamp the whole thing and start in 2018 because we're just getting started!
This is the first of many red flags of Butch Hartman's character. This alone kind of exposes Butch as being a hypocrite, as well as blindly following trends which will end up hurting him a lot in future events that we'll cover here shortly. And while a lot of this clickbait might seem harmless on surface level, it allows for a lot of leeway to see his actual intentions. That being that he didn't really have much passion for the YouTube platform itself, but rather he's just capitalizing in on a currently successful medium to further his own profits and popularity. And I know that sounds like a bit of a stretch now, just going off of his misleading and ambiguous thumbnails, but it begins to make more and more sense when you look into his other trademark characteristics he has, like his massive ego and his inability to take criticism. Now, I don't want to go too deeply into the segment because there are people who have brought this up way better than I could have ever been able to, and I don't want to give off the impression that I'm stealing others' content. But to put it simply, Butch Hartman is to children's programming what Seth MacFarlane is to adult cartoons. They both think they're the hottest shit in the industry. They both have only ever had 2 good cartoons that they both ran into the ground, and finally, their egos are both so massive that it has begun clouding their personal projects. For Seth, it was A Million Ways to Die in the West, and for Butch, it was his YouTube channel. However, unlike Seth, Butch is completely unable to take the blame for the things he creates. Like, whenever he explains the constant addition of new, pointless characters into his long-running show, The Fairly Odd Parents, he blames that the network forced him to put these characters into his shows. And that's understandable, but the network never forced him to make these characters as obnoxious and as badly written as they are. Like, if you think about it, adding new characters could be a good way to breathe new life into a show. Butch kind of explains that the reason why newer Fairly Odd Parents episodes are so bland and boring compared to the old is due in part with him having worked on the show for about 16 years, but you also figure with all these brand new characters that you can implement interesting characteristics and character dynamics into the show that just didn't exist beforehand. Like the character of Chloe, for instance. Instead of making her perfect, give her the outward appearance of being perfect, but then show Timmy and Chloe having a moment of clarity in which showcases that Chloe is just like everyone else, and struggles with the same issues that everyone else faces eventually in their lives. You know, give the show some more substance or something. If you're running out of steam, put more coal in there. Or propane or some shit. I don't know how fuel works. I get that you're running out of oil as a creator working on the same property for nearly 20 years, but with the constant demand for new characters also comes the demand for new plot lines, for new character dynamics, and for a new view of life that just other characters weren't able to offer. I know the network is forcing these new characters onto him, but at least make something interesting about your new characters to look into. I mean, fuck. Poof literally doesn't even fucking talk. I'd forgive him if he were able to live up to his mistakes as well, but he feels incapable of doing that. I mean, his explanation for fucking up Dougal as badly as he did is...
And at this point, I've got one of 2 decisions to make. I can either have an idea or have no idea.
Yup, that's some real good justification, buddy. I'm bringing all this up because these are characteristics that Butch has always had, but that people have always given him a free pass on due to the fact that he made 2 good shows that you liked as a kid. This is something he absolutely will make sure you don't forget. After all, this dude literally made your childhood. You would be nowhere without Butch. Finally, now that we've gotten all that covered, it's time to look into the newest controversy itself, starting with the Oaxis Kickstarter. Oaxis was the beginning of the downfall for Butch. It was a Kickstarter that promised absolutely nothing that didn't already exist. I'm not gonna dive into every single nook and cranny of the Oaxis because plenty of other YouTubers have already tackled the topic. But basically put, it was supposed to be like Netflix Kids, except in a large emphasis on the kids. But it also had the functions of uploading your own videos onto the platform like YouTube. Except those were also heavily censored for kids, so you get a knockoff kid-friendly Netflix/YouTube. And that is basically the gist of Kickstarter. Not many people were happy with it for understandable reasons. Firstly, it's combining the idea of 2 properties that already exist, meaning that Butch is asking for like $200,000 to create something that we already have. Secondly, Butch's massive ego was simply unavoidable in the showcasing video. Thirdly, it was way too vague as to what it actually even was, with no other names attached and no specifics on what he deems as family-friendly content. And fourthly, the pledges were honestly pretty ridiculous. Pledge $5 to get an email. Great. Pledge $25 to get an iPhone wallpaper. Fantastic. Pledge $50 to get a fucking plain sketchbook? Pledge $5,000 to get into a video call with Butch Hartman? Pledge $10,000 to get an animated character in an Oaxis original show? Something that I will presume will probably be in the background and will be hard to see to begin with. Holy fuck, Butch, you crazy bastard. And it passed! It reached its goal! What the fuck? As to how it passed is honestly beyond me, but one factor that probably helped is definitely Butch Hartman's manipulation tactics to trick people into funding the project last second. For instance, the deleting this video in 24 hours shenanigan in which he directly asked $99 from 600 people. And to be able to trust him on this one, guys, he's Butch Hartman after all. There were also Kickstarter live streams he made where he flat out ignored questions asking if Oaxis will have LGBT friendly material, which is important to understand because he directly said that Oaxis would have content for everyone whenever he was asked earlier on what he would define as family friendly content from a Q&A video days before. This is also important because it will lead into a much bigger issue that has completely caused the fall of Butch's career to begin with. He was later questioned about the connection of Oaxis' content with his Christian beliefs, in which I believe he admitted to be making Oaxis under promoting Christian values. Not his specific wording, but once again, that's about the gist of it. And that doesn't sound too bad on the surface, but you have to also note that nowhere in the Kickstarter is Christian beliefs ever mentioned at all in the slightest. Mind you, this was all on a stream on his Kickstarter hours before the Kickstarter itself ended, meaning that he neglected to bring up the single-handedly most important agenda of Oaxis until the last few hours of its campaign. The issue in which this comes into play is how Butch Hartman intentionally withheld vital information from his already vague and mysterious streaming project. But then, to make things worse, a video was leaked in which he gave a speech about his intentions for the Oaxis program months before the Kickstarter actually went into play. What this proved was that Butch's plans for Oaxis from conception alone was for it to promote Christian values. Once again, it's not the intentions itself that's the issue, it is withholding information from your loyal patrons who donated their hard-earned greens, or their parents, you never know, to contributing to a product in which they ultimately did not agree to contribute to due to the lack of information from the very beginning. And Butch's reaction to it all is fucking maddening. Butch Hartman went on a rampage removing any and all footage from which he admits all of this. To make things worse, around this time is whenever people start to realize how bad he really was at taking criticism and how massive his ego proved to be with the uprise of a couple of his live streams in which he said, if you can't make cartoons, you can't criticize his work, which is completely ridiculous. You don't have to be a doctor to realize that stabbing the heart head on with a hunter's knife probably isn't it's probably not the most recommended route if you want your patient to actually leave the hospital alive. This notion that you have to be an animator to criticize Butch's practices would imply that the animation is the only thing that ever goes into these shows, as opposed to the characters, the plot structure, the voice acting, the audience engagement. I think the best quote that he said in response to his criticism is definitely this one. Since I can't actually upload the clip itself without Hartman's ego stretching beyond the boundaries of my monitor and suffocating me in my sleep, I'll just do my best impression of the quote and how he said it in the stream itself. And you are gonna take me down? What are you, kidding? That's kind of a joke, I think. So, good luck. That wasn't intentionally exaggerated either. I'm sorry if that's how it came across, but that's just me doing my best impression of him, so, fuck off. Butch also, on top of all of this, makes a distasteful joke about how Tara Strong is responsible for the suicide of Mary Kay Birdman right to her face, which Tara got noticeably uncomfortable during that podcast. And remember that this man worked with Tara for over a decade on his own show, The Fairly Odd Parents. And finally, to top it all off, people who have worked with Butch Hartman have come out in public about how much of an ass he is, and how he credited none of the animators and nobody else in the staff during a toast, but rather himself. If anyone still wants to defend Butch, go ahead. Good luck fighting that uphill battle. And that is the downfall of Butch Hartman. His idea of relocating his primary content to the YouTube platform started off as one of promise from his legendary status alone in the entertainment industry, but not even he could resist his own ego. Butch Hartman will forever go down in history as a legendary scam artist, one that went from 1 million subs to 700k. And while 700k is still a good amount of subscribers to have, to lose 300 subs within the span of like 3 days so quickly is downright pathetic, albeit earned. As to what my opinions on Butch Hartman have always been, I've never really liked him. I've just never had the opportunity to discuss my issues with him either, because what I wanted to say have already been said much better. However, despite people already having made a video on this topic in particular, it's still important to spread this news around and to get the word out to as many people as possible. Because under no circumstances should Butch be allowed to steal people's money like that and just walk away happily. I am in no way suggesting to harass Butch, but rather to speak up on this topic as much as you can and to share this video as well as many other videos on this topic as much as possible for the sake of stopping future abominations like this Kickstarter from occurring. This has been Exro, telling you to be careful as to what projects you pledge to. Good night, America.